Well, did SMU do enough to stay in this college football playoff? I think so. Joined as always by Quentin, Nick, and Todd. Let's react to this show, guys. What are y'all's thoughts after yesterday's games?
I think SMU is a fraud, but they're going to get in.
So are you?
Surely sounds like SMU's getting in. What I've been just reading on social.
Yeah.
Well, Brett McMurphy just broke the news.
That's what I just saw.
Yeah, breaking news: SMU's in, Alabama's out.
Why do people have to do that? That just annoys. Like,
I don't know.
I mean, I get why he has to. It's his job, but it's the same thing with NFL draft and MLB draft. It always gets released like 2 or 3 minutes early. Just kind of spoils the surprise. But yeah, I don't think it was a surprise. I mean, SMU earned it last night. And I saw somebody put it on Twitter. The best I actually read was SMU kind of got put in a hole big early and played about as bad as they could. They bounced back and obviously tied the game with 16 seconds left. What happened last time Bama got put in a hole early? They finished 34-3 against Oklahoma. They didn't bounce back. So that was kind of the last kind of straw. Those both happened within the last 3 weeks. I think that kind of says a lot about the two teams.
Yeah, it's the old question of, is it most deserving or is it best? Yeah, if you were to set it by an odd standpoint, sure, Ole Miss would be in, Alabama would be in, but it's not. It's not that way. And we saw Florida State get shafted. They sacrificed last season so that SMU could run into the 2025 playoff. Those are my thoughts. I think SMU. I wouldn't go as far as to say they're overrated. Q, you can elaborate on that, but I think they're, and we've talked about it, right? There's been a lot of parity in college football this season, and I think Arizona State showing up yesterday and dominating Iowa State, I think they could make a lot of noise in this playoff. Smitty, sorry you were on Iowa State. I don't know why you went against your co-host here.
Well, you have to. You got to be different on the show. You got to think differently, and that's what I did. And that game was entertaining for a little bit. Entertaining.
Oh, and Scatteroo just scored another touchdown.
But hey, that was the problem. That was the Iowa State's thing. They couldn't stop the run, and they got out-coached. They could never adjust to stop the run. Their offense was good there early in the game, and they just could never stop the run. And you got to. Hey, I love I said it on Friday. I love the coach. The running back's a superstar, so good for them.
That's one of the main questions I think today is, like, I think they were probably the most impressive team yesterday in those games. Like, yes, they technically had the easiest draw. Like, with it being Iowa State, I think Iowa State was probably the worst team out of the 4 kind of like major conference champions. But they looked the best. So do they get that 4 spot? Do they jump Boise for the 3 spot? I think that would probably surprise me. But I bet they probably end up 4, just with, and I think Clemson 11, SMU 12. It's probably how it should go, just because they look the most impressive.
Yeah, if you just woke up yesterday and decided you were going to start watching college football, and you were told that these were the conference tournament games, like these are the best teams from each conference. Now tell me, what team do you think is the number 1 team in the country? Who would you have said?
Oh, Oregon and those unis all day.
Yeah, I mean, if you saw the rankings, yeah, I think 1 versus 3. You look at Oregon, they look dominant, but Penn State hung around. That game actually worried me a little bit.
I said off air, let me jump. I was shocked how fast Penn State was trying to play. I thought they were going to try to slow the game down a little bit. I was really surprised that they were, I mean, and their offense looked good. It was just their defense just was not good. I mean, just gave up too many points, but I was really shocked. I thought Penn State was going to try to run the ball more with Singleton, Allen, try to slow it down a little bit in that game. And they really weren't. And then they got put in the hole a couple times, and they really came back and had to really push it down the field and go vertically.
Where was that play calling all season long for Penn State? Like, everything was clicking offensively. They were moving the ball down the field. Passing game looked great.
They better enjoy it, because he might be at West Virginia next year, being the main guy, the offensive coordinator. So
yeah,
rocking my Oregon shirt. I will say it is very impressive, and I was hoping that ACC would have it happen too. But hats off to Army, Arizona State, Oregon, and almost SMU for being the first year to be in a conference, a new conference, and then be in the conference championship, almost win it. 3 out of 4 did. Pretty cool.
Yeah, Auburn looked really. Army looked really good out of the gate. Tulane looked like they didn't want to be there. That quarterback Army has, he's a workhorse. I thought somebody, whoever was doing the game cast, I think they said it best. Like the military guys, the good quarterbacks, good athletes that come out of it, like they get super overshadowed by your Ashton Genty and stuff like that. But stat wise, there's does he deserve a spot in New York for the Heisman? You could probably make a decent argument. He was that team. You take him off, Army's not 11-1, and I think they're going to boat race Navy, and he's just going to have another stellar game. Like the kid balls out, so kudos to him.
So, what did y'all make of the SEC championship game?
I think we said it right. It was going to be a closer game, but again, man, Kirby, it's hard to beat him.
That quarterback, what is it, Gunner?
Gunner Stockton.
Yeah.
My thing with what really scares you about either of those teams? Maybe their defensive lines, but outside of that, neither offensive line could block. Both linebacker groups are obviously great. Both defensive back groups gave up a ton of easy plays. We'll see what happens with the quarterback. Quinn Ewers just looks uncomfortable.
Quinn looks
very
so
uncomfortable. He makes some awesome. He makes some awesome throws where it's put that one where he's kind of on the run and hits the guy down the sideline and couldn't have thrown it any better. And then literally throws the one off his back foot trying to get 30 yards all the way across from the other hash to the sideline. I don't know. He's very inconsistent. So I don't know. Nothing scares me. I think, and this is my homerism in Notre Dame, where it's people can say we haven't played the best schedule, which we haven't. I think it's going to finish the year 58th in strength of schedule or somewhere around there. But I haven't seen anybody where it's oh my gosh, this team would just put us in the ground, or it's oh my gosh, we can't handle this offense or this defense we wouldn't score on. So I think that's all the way around the country this year. Just Texas and Georgia was supposed to be the best game, supposed to be the two kind of best teams, and neither one looks like it.
Yeah.
Nick, you guys had a 58th ranked schedule, but you guys did take care of business outside of the NIU game. Mm-hmm. You guys were covering spreads, and that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're not supposed to have close games against shit teams. And outside of that game, you guys, blew everybody out you were supposed to and beat everybody you were supposed to. I'll answer your question, though. I think Texas doesn't scare me. Quinn Ewers regressed. They're down to their fourth-string running back. You can just kind of start to see that without a dominant running back. It really hurt him yesterday. But again, I've said it all year, this is the worst Georgia team we've seen in 5 years, but they still have Kirby Smart, and he's shows you yesterday, still one of the worst teams playing a very athletic Texas team. They can still win ball games. They're not pretty games, but they still have ETN. They still have, an emerging tight end, not Brock Bowers by any means, but he's come on as of late. Their linebackers can beat just about any running back side to side. They take away your screen game. It's hard to play and beat Georgia, and they're built for playoff games. Their mentality is there, and everybody kind of doubted them, saying Texas was going to win yesterday, and they didn't. And that's the thing I think that you have to be scared about. They don't have to be the best team, but they're still scary when you have to look across the sideline and see Kirby Smart scheming against you and making second half adjustments.
Yeah, I think Sark is probably kicking himself. They had so many opportunities to really close the door on that game, and then Gunner Stockton comes in, which you could say that the defense of Texas wasn't ready for that, but come on. But he gave them a better spark on offense than Carson Beck has.
Well, he can run, and that's a big
I think that was the change. It was a change of pace. I think that kind of surprised them. First drive out of the half really took them down there quick. Really, the kid made one bad throw, and that was late in that drive that Texas went down and tied the game. And I don't even think he saw that guy. He was just trying to, I think, throw it out of bounds, and he didn't even see that other guy for Texas there. But I thought it was a spark for them. And again, I think home field, we said it on Friday's show, just them being there and where they were playing that game, I think that was a big part of it.
Yeah, where do you get Georgia at? Georgia here is going to be a big one. Do they get the 1 or do they get the 2 or the 3? Could be interesting because 2, I believe, sends them. 2
I think they'll get a
to the Sugar Bowl, which means I think 2 gives them the Sugar Bowl.
I mean, nothing against Boise, but does Boise really deserve the 2 seed?
No,
I don't.
I don't think so. I'm with you there. But I do think it's interesting to see where they play because you look at both of Georgia's losses on the road. You have both of you say all 3 of their really good wins. Like Clemson it's called a neutral site. Everybody knows that's not a neutral site. Last night is called a neutral site. Everybody knows downtown Atlanta is not a neutral site for a Georgia football game. So let's see what happens if they aren't in that neutral site because they just like Ole Miss, what they did to them, what Bama did to them. So we'll see.
I think if they catch what the 2 seed, we'll have the Sugar Bowl is what you were saying, Nick?
2 seed would be Sugar. 1 seed. Well, actually, 1 seed, I believe. It's like the number they get. Like I believe they go down order in selection or something. It's something weird this year. So if it does, if Oregon's first,
that'll be another home game for Georgia. In the South, they're going to travel to the Sugar Bowl,
unless it's unless it's Texas, or unless it's probably Texas.
Here.
Reese is happy right now.
Nobody's looking at Reese. I know what they're doing. Maybe we should do that.
Matt, we've always said we gotta bring the wives on. We probably have 1,000.
Jordan says Georgia at 2, which somehow gives them better matchups. And and I think the 5 seed really gets a favorable matchup as well. But going back real quick, because Nick was talking about Notre Dame's strength of schedule is kind of one of their knocks. But if you look at the other playoff teams, it's right in line with everybody else. I mean, Oregon 52nd, Texas is 26, Ohio State 40, Notre Dame 59. Then you've got Tennessee 56, Penn State 60, SMU 65, Indiana 72. So, I mean, it's not like you're getting a bunch of top 10 strength of schedule teams in here. Florida Gators were ranked number 2 strength of schedule.
Who ended up finishing one? Who had the number 1? Because preseason Florida
at the end of the season.
Yeah, I actually just saw it. I want to say Mississippi State. I was Mississippi State.
Mississippi State was 5 based on our rankings, but the numbers haven't been ran yet for after this week.
I think we're always going to have problems with this format.
And Georgia has the best. They were 3rd.
Yeah. And how is Texas is so high?
And this is never going to happen, but you almost have to realign conferences. And the reason I say it is I'll just use the SMU Alabama strength of schedule comparison. Like you put Alabama in ACC realistically, are they running the table? More than likely.
Let's be honest. It's all about money.
It is. But then let's say back to the point, you put SMU and SEC. Like, can they really run an 11-1 in that conference?
No, they're probably going 7-5 or 8-4.
Yeah. So I think so. Here's the problem, right? Like, are they deserving on paper record wise? Sure. Reality wise, SEC is tougher. It's hard to go to Texas and then wake up the next week and play Florida and Jacksonville, then travel to Auburn, like all these, and then Tennessee. It's so much harder, and I think it's deservingly so that the SEC gets the bias. It creates problems because now you have a 3-loss Alabama because of who they play, like waking up day in and day out. These other schools, the ACC, the Big 12, like they've got to schedule big time non-conference opponents to even say like, hey, we played Ohio State, we played Texas in an early game or Florida. Like you've got to put some meat on your schedule. When your best win ends up being Duke and Manny Diaz as a head coach for SMU, like that doesn't look good. Your 2 ranked wins, both teams aren't ranked. Louisville's 8-4 and Pittsburgh at 7-5. So those look like shit wins now. It's really hard to justify that. If you're going to justify that, and I'll say this, and it's some people can say it's outlandish, but why doesn't Army have just as good a chance as SMU? They both played shit schedules. One won their conference, the other didn't.
Hey, Maddie, put the one comment up. And again, thanks for everyone being here and putting comments in the chat here. It was, right there. And that's a good one because Brad Powers has been saying it, and I've been saying it too. Not trying to steal Brad's stuff, but it's all about TV ratings here. Now, I don't think it's going to happen, and I've been the big one that's saying I thought Alabama was going to get in. And we were texting last night. I think if that game was anywhere from 7 or higher, SMU's out. And how they lost, I think that's the only reason why that game they're going to be in.
Yeah, they showed fight. They came back.
I agree.
If it was 7 or higher, I think Alabama would be in today. And it's exactly what he just said, because it's money, it's TV ratings. Brad Powers has been saying it if you've been watching any of his stuff, and I 100% agree with him.
Well, at the end of the day, they don't want another 50-plus loss by TCU. I mean, that was one of the worst games to watch. And if you can avoid that at all costs, that's what they're going to do, whether it aligns with, what we all want it to be or not. And it ties back to that money and who's going to provide the best games, the best chance to win. And, if that's Alabama or SMU, like that's their decision to be made. But bottom line is we know the bigger program. Now, it may not be the case today, but that's why. Nobody wants to watch a 63-7 championship game.
And I'll tell you right now, if you look at a lot of the championship game, cold Friday night, Tulane, Army, who is the more man team? Army. Who pounded the ball? Army. Arizona State yesterday against Iowa. Who pounded the ball? That's why I think Arizona State can go anywhere. I don't care if it's cold. You give him the ball, he's gonna run the ball. It's who can control the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, same thing for Georgia. When Georgia was taking control of that game, I mean, Carson Beck came in with like a broken elbow, and you knew just stack the box. They're gonna run it.
How bad?
Not throwing it.
Can we talk about that? You got Jalen Rashada suing Florida, goes to Arizona State. Your backup quarterback gets knocked out of the game for a play, and they bring in a quarterback whose arm's hanging down by his ankle to finish the game. I just thought that was a good storyline. Like, you think you're this greatest athlete, and you can't even come in as a third string for one play. I thought it was priceless as a Gator fan.
Cue up the Q getting one Florida mention here in a college playoff ranking show.
That's number 2 because
just remember Michigan just beat Ohio State 2 weeks ago. Everyone.
All right, quotas. Anything about Arkansas, real quick, Matt?
Yeah, they're stupid for letting Luke Haas go.
Hey, can I just say, Slippery Rock, Final Four. Good luck, boys. Let's go get in the national championship.
Hey, why is Josh Braun leaving also, Matt? I thought he's a good lineman. Is he just
I think the whole team is leaving. Right. We're down, I think, 4 defensive starters, 8 offensive starters.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It wasn't for lack of playing time because I thought he did really well.
No. I thought we were going to fire Sam and bring back Rhett Lashley. Bring him home. But
I think we got to bring back the microphones on the last show for college football, and we've got to pitch why you should join our team as a new fan. You have to decide.
Ugh.
Okay, I got
nothing.
Quick rant, short rant. Another I'm just because I saw 2 more tweets about it, and it's like who Alabama would be favored over. Like Alabama would be a 6-point favorite over SMU on a neutral. I am so sick of like that stuff, and not just like, and that like screams SEC bias right there, because it is. And I don't hate the SEC. Like, I'm not a hater of it. They've been the best conference for who knows how long. But to say that like a team should get in only because they'd be favored kind of takes out the point of even ever playing a football game. Like I mentioned last week in our Discord, Oklahoma was a 17.5-point favorite against Oklahoma, 17.5-point favorite against Oklahoma, where they finished, got beat by 31. They were a 20.5-point favorite against Vandy and got beat. So it's like, it's tough. See, I know, and it's like Ole Miss would dominate, maybe, but there's nothing to like. There's no
unless the team that played Kentucky showed up.
Yeah, like if Kentucky showed, and that was at home. Like it's hard to tell. You can't just say like there. It's very just like okay, we think so, but nothing. Like there's no point in playing games if it was all just played on paper. So I think you have to earn your way in more than just who do we think is better.
And to follow up on that, Lane Kiffin's tweets are extremely cringy because he's sitting here bragging about, yes, you beat Georgia. You lost to Kentucky, Florida, and LSU. Don't lose to them. One of those. Don't lose to one of those 3, and you're in.
Yeah.
It's great you beat Georgia 28-10. Don't lose those other 3.
Same with Bama. Bama's probably a 5 or 6 seed if you don't lose. Don't lose to Vandy at Vandy. I don't care if like that's still a Vandy team that's as close as they were, and they were great at covering spreads. They still won 2 conference games, I think. So it's not like they were some great team. So it's like, come on, don't lose Oklahoma, don't lose to Vandy, and you're in. Like, take care of your own business and don't rely on other teams on a championship Saturday to help you get in.
That's fair. I mean, it's hard to argue. You've had 12 weeks to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say this: what happens if we put these teams in and they just get blown out? Is that what we're here for? Also,
but that happens.
I think we all.
That happens in basketball. Teams they get boat raced. I mean,
and Alabama.
Yeah, there's a difference though between when there's 68 teams versus 12.
Every game's every game. You got to remember, these are 18 to 20, 21-year-olds. Some Finley and some of these other guys are 27 or something. But I mean, it's just it can happen. That's why competition's so great.
No, you're right. I don't know.
And Alabama proved they could get blown out. They got beat. They got 34 points to a team that hadn't scored 34 since week 1 of the season.
Matt said it best. It was in a separate group chat. Whether we agree with it or not, what their points are, or talking points, or decision points, just come out and say what you're looking for, so we can at least say, okay, we at least know where you stand. Doesn't mean we agree with it or support it, but at least we put it out there. This is what we're looking for. X, Y, and Z, and then there's none of this, well, what if versus hey, reality versus on paper, because you've already told us, like it or not, these are what we're looking at.
But okay, so Mike,
but they won't do that.
If you put Boise State against any of the top teams, stack the box, take away their own game, maybe.
But they played the number 1 team in the country and only got beat by 3.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to look back a while, but some teams that you did not expect to be really good ended up being decent. The most recent, probably TCU beating Michigan. I don't think anybody really saw that happening. Now, granted, they got whooped by Georgia in the national championship, but they did beat Michigan. And then who would have been another team? I'm thinking back Ohio State back in the Cardell Jones when they were on their third string. Yeah. Nobody gave them a chance, and they beat Alabama in the national championship, blew them out.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. You never know. Am I saying Florida State would have gone in with a backup quarterback last year and made noise in the playoff? Maybe not. But I think this at least gives us an opportunity to see, because how shocked are we going to be if Clemson gets a good draw in the first round and now all of a sudden it's Clemson, Georgia in the semifinals? We don't know.
I mean, what's a good draw for Clemson?
It sounds like they're going to be 11. If they're 11, it's either Penn State. They're either going to Penn State or to Texas.
I don't think that's a good draw at all.
I hope they go.
No, I think Clemson obviously is not very good. They're the one kind of spoiler of this perfect playoff picture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think they should have gotten in. I don't care.
I kind of like that they got in because Brennan doesn't get anybody in NIL money. I think it throws a little wrench in it. I kind of like it.
If Clemson gets a bye, we're right. I agree. They're not getting a bye.
Yeah, they're not.
They'll be like the 12th seed.
No.
Still have to play the games. Yeah, this is another thing too, is that if the college football playoff committee would come out and say what their guidelines are, what did they want to see?
Yes.
I think 1, win your games. 2, did you beat teams that were good, or did you just beat up on bad teams? And if you did beat up on bad teams, how badly did you blow them out? Because I think Kurt Cignetti has a case with Indiana saying margin of victory should count. Yeah, Indiana looked dominant. However, the one opportunity you had to show it, you kind of fell off the rails after the first quarter.
Or do good losses matter more than good wins? From Penn State's standpoint. Penn State's played 2 good teams. They've lost them both. Best win is still Illinois. So it's but they're probably going to be the 6th seed most likely, or probably 7th. So it's one of those, like you said, what matters more?
I don't think there is such a thing as a good loss.
Agreed, but you know what I mean. I'm just going off what we hear everywhere on Twitter and TV.
I actually totally disagree.
If they're okay, but if Alabama is 9-3 and all of their losses were in triple overtime by 1 point, it's still not a good loss. I don't care.
But I think they're in.
One, number 2, number 3 team in the country.
Like if that happens, they'd be in.
We'll have to win them.
I don't agree with that, and I'll tell you why. Because if Boise didn't play Oregon and lost, they're probably not in this game or in this. They're in it because their one loss was against the number 1 team in the country.
And they won their conference.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like we act like Boise's this elite team, which they have a great running back. They lost to Oregon. That's a good loss. Like you hung with the number 1 team in the country all year. It's not like they lost to Nevada. I mean, if you're going to lose a game, lose the one to the best team in the country in the polls.
Oh, so they're going to have SMU ahead of Clemson after literally we just saw that game on the field yesterday.
I like it, though. I thought Clemson would be the 12th seed. I mean, they're the worst team to make it.
Todd McShay, I thought, had a good point. Can we just rank it the top 12, the top 4 seeds?
Yeah, I hate the way that they rank it. Everybody should just be an at-large.
I agree. The top 4 seeds, it doesn't matter if you win your conference or not. I mean, you can get an automatic bid, whatever, that's fine. But the top 12 teams that are decided, then we rank those teams and you get your bye. Because right now, it's pretty shitty Notre Dame doesn't have a bye and Boise does.
So Texas and Georgia
flip-flop. Yeah.
What a path for Texas. If Quinn Ewers did not
Notre Dame
suck.
7.
Great spot. Great spot for Texas. And
What do you make that number? Texas Clemson.
Texas 9.5.
It'll be 6. It'll be probably 6.5.
I was gonna go 7. I was gonna go 6.5, 7, 7.5.
It was 2. It was what 2.5 against South Carolina. I think it'll be 6.5. 7.
So tough game, hard fought game, losing in overtime.
Are we assuming Penn State 6, Notre Dame 7?
Yeah, if Texas
I think it's flipped.
Yeah.
But if that sounds like if Texas only went to 5th, then I don't know.
What did I text y'all last night? What I thought it would.
You had Penn State 6.
I think Penn State will still be higher.
Yeah, I had Oregon 1, Georgia 2.
Notre Dame's just getting
State
shafted.
3, Arizona State 4.
So Indiana's most likely going to get, Notre Dame's most likely going to get Indiana, and it looks like, Penn State's going to get SMU at home, and then Tennessee, Ohio State.
Penn State might not throw past the entire game.
So here's what.
it's gonna
So
be
the next part's what
SMU.
screws Notre Dame is that Notre Dame's second game is either Oregon or Georgia if you win your first one.
Yeah. So back when SMU was getting blown out, this is where I had Bama, but now it's going to be SMU. We're right.
Yes.
This should be SMU. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be SMU.
But they did play Ohio State. They did play Oregon.
Are they going to make us wait for it?
So the 2 losses, they come in as a 6
Are they-
seed.
I know. Let's go.
Just do
Steelers
that
to
last.
1. Let's go.
Well, I can't remember who, somebody tweeted out and said they understand that they have so many viewers up until that NFL window. They are going to take full advantage of it.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy because like on the regular Tuesday nights, they're out within like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just bang, bang, bang. And let's talk.
Beneath the golden dome in the shadow of touchdown Jesus, the word of life.
Touchdown, Jesus, December 20th, 21st.
Look at the all whites.
Hey, you gotta love. There's gonna be football at Notre Dame.
Please give me snow on the
Beaver
ground.
Stadium.
Please.
Man. Love
Give me
it.
snow on the ground.
It's gonna be hopefully.
Notre Dame will have a home game as the 7th seed. Once we get to the 10, we'll find out their matchup.
How do you think Riley Leonard matches up against Georgia?
And one thing I'm going to ask
Dude, I like it.
I like it too. I like it too.
Jalen Miller
It all
kind of
depends on
gave that
quarterback
blueprint.
situation.
Yeah.
No, I mean offensively though. But that blueprint is like with what Jackson Dart on a injured ankle ran for 70-something yards. Jalen Miller ran for 148 in the first half alone. I think that's like I said, I would much rather have Georgia than Oregon.
We get the matchup.
Oh wait, so they flip flop? Do they? No, they didn't. Never mind.
No.
No,
So we're going to get Ohio State, Oregon, part 2.
You should get Tennessee
I
right
think
at
you're
9. We still
I think
going
you're getting
Tennessee.
Tennessee.
We don't, because I hope Ohio State.
We're still thinking Tennessee at 9, right, against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going
And I don't know. I'm not buying Tennessee. I think they're fool's gold.
And you're going to get Indiana against Notre Dame, probably, then SMU there
Yeah.
against Penn State.
Ohio State's going to be at
Better
Yeah,
watch
but
out for
you
those
believe in
Kirk
Ohio
Netties.
State, though? You say Tennessee's fool's gold. Like, what has Ohio State shown you that makes them so much better?
Well, that's true.
In Eugene, but as Kirk rightly pointed out, the Buckeyes
They're
have
both
things
very
to
similar.
overcome.
I mean, because if you look at power ratings per conference, they're probably in the same spot. They're the second or third, fourth
And
best
I'm
team.
not trusting Ohio State's quarterback play against Tennessee's defense.
I hope Tennessee's defense plays well.
Yeah.
Man, I hate to say it. I said it the other night. I'll probably go
Under
in that game.
Under
whatever number this is.
Like,
Michigan's
although
just run the
I
ball.
said
Just home
under,
field. I think home field.
Just run
under
the
last
ball.
night in both the
Michigan
ACC
did.
and Big Ten championship games, and they scored 1,000 points. So
This will be 47.5, 48.5, I would assume.
injured Beck and ETN. Georgia will have to rely on the defense. Yep, I agree. It hadn't been the best. Nico might get eaten alive in that matchup.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Michigan's quarterbacks didn't get eaten alive in that game, and they're way worse than Nico.
Well, they only threw
Well,
for 60 yards.
Yeah, but Nico can run. You have a great running back. Good line.
Their offensive line is very good.
Run all over
Yeah.
Ohio State. I mean, Michigan ran all over Ohio State.
Jordan said Clemson team total under 10.5. I agree. I think Texas's defense.
Nah, I'd go over that.
I'd go over
Nate
that.
Klubnik.
I'd go over that. They'll score. I think Klubnik had a nice game. I mean,
They'll get
4
14 to
touchdowns.
17 up.
He's very up and down. I
I will
think
be
Texas
curious
wins
to
that
see
game,
what
but I
their
think that's
total is, though. I'm not buying Clemson, y'all.
I've got Clemson in the 14 to 17.
You're just pissy because they beat SMU last night. Let's be honest.
No, I thought that they probably would because Dabo has been there before, but the way that they let SMU come all the way back in the second half, I mean, it all came down to that field goal.
Yeah.
Because if it goes to overtime, I think SMU
Well,
wins.
they made mistakes. They made mistakes early. I mean, that put them in a hole. I mean, we saw that with the Tulane game on Friday. Too many mistakes
Tennessee
early.
should wear amazing.
Tennessee alternate units.
They do have the Lady Vols where it's kind of like the baby blue.
Yeah, the old
Mix that
or
in
the
a little
old
bit.
smoky. It's kind of like that slate bluish gray.
Mhm.
Just wear those.
You know what I do like back to Notre Dame again, and I mentioned it kind of sucks where they're
Man, they are just
getting Georgia
milking
second.
it.
Where they're getting Georgia second, but if you look at who they get in the semi, you're getting either Boise State or most likely Penn State. So their actual semifinal game is going to be easier than the quarterfinal.
God, look at that comparison.
Okay, now put the losses up there.
Yeah,
Why do they always do that?
Why are they milking it? We know
they
it's
refuse to put
SMU.
the losses.
Yeah.
Ledger that will be ranked in the top 15 to 20.
I wonder what they're saying.
I think the biggest gap right there is the key wins, and I think that's what Coach Saban was talking about. When you look at the key wins for Alabama versus the key wins for SMU, being Louisville, Duke, Pitt, TCU. I mean, there is a mile apart in having to go through those schedules.
I know that I'm dragging this up. I want to say this before we get to
Yes, you are.
Thanks,
There's no
But
right-
SMU had
sides
opportunities to lose too. They almost lost the second to last week in the regular season, and they found a way to
Alabama
win.
has a couple ugly losses.
It took them everything to beat Nevada in week one.
And
Yeah.
they're going to get criticism either way.
How they were playing Preston Stone over
They
this
got
kid,
Penn
though.
State.
Shocking.
And the final spot
Yeah.
in the college football playoff.
Army.
It's SMU.
SMU.
Yes,
They
man.
came back last night. If they didn't come back last night, it was Alabama.
I think if it was 7 or more, they were gone. I think if it was 7 or more, they weren't in. I think they said
What do
we
we
have
line
to
up
do this.
SMU Penn State? What's the line?
Do you think they had, if we had cameras in that room and they came back and tied it, they were probably like, crap, we're going to have to actually put this team in?
Alabama
Probably.
the first team out, and the second
What do we have
team
that
out
line?
is
SMU.
That's also
Penn.
giving it, like I said last week, that's giving the committee a lot of credit that we actually think they watch all the games.
I wish when they did that live video, them watching it, like a couple of them were sleeping in the chair. That would have been great.
Nick has talked about this all year. On
How about they had that
college
84-inch with about
who you
232s
play
next to it?
Has to matter, has to be important, whether that's
All
talking
right.
about Alabama or
So what do we
anybody else in
think
college football.
here?
If you
All
want
right,
to
we'll just go down.
incentivize
We'll
scheduling,
predict the
then
lines.
you have to take that into
We
consideration.
already
What's your reaction, Nick, to seeing
Clemson,
the decision
Texas.
the committee made with that final spot?
Well, I think one of the things that I've mentioned
Hang on, I'm going to
throughout this football season
put the
is
still shot up there.
if we don't take strength of schedule into consideration, is there any benefit to scheduling really good teams in the future? Like, here at Alabama, we're
still
supposed
there?
to play Notre Dame,
Yeah,
Ohio State,
I was listening to what he
Wisconsin,
said.
Florida State in the future outside.
He's not
the
wrong.
league.
Why
Well,
schedule
those are
tough
great
teams?
games for
In
fans.
fairness,
to
they only
see.
scheduled one. Like in
That's
Wisconsin, it was
Who
a 6
did
and 16.
Alabama
That's what I
schedule
said.
that was tough?
Wisconsin is literally
The
it.
SEC.
Otherwise,
More good
no, you don't
inventory for
schedule the
games.
SEC.
Yeah, you
The
don't
SEC
schedule the
schedules
You
SEC.
don't schedule
But
that.
Why
you
even be in a
enhance
conference?
people wanting to
Exactly.
do that.
That's what Notre Dame's been
Where
saying for
what's the
100
athletic
years.
director do? He may go cancel all those games now.
They have
knowing
naked
that
pictures
the
on
SEC
somebody
is
for not having to
tough
join a
enough.
conference in
But
football.
at the same time, I do think
Money.
the best
I just
teams
don't
are in the
understand.
playoff,
I mean,
which
you
think
heard.
is most
Did
important.
y'all see Kirby Smart take a
And
shot
no
at
coach
Sankey
should have any
Yeah.
last
complaint
night?
about what
No.
his
I mean,
stats
Alabama
are
doesn't
just
have to
relative
schedule
getting
anybody
in
tough
the
because
They
they will
playoffs,
didn't
out of the
really
playoffs,
play
because they all control
everybody
their own
tough in the
destiny,
SEC
and
either.
they all had
So,
opportunities.
Georgia
and they had some
tough,
flaws
LSU
and bad
8-4,
losses that contributed to their
South Carolina
circumstances.
9-3,
So
one
this
of the
could be a
toughest teams
learning
as of
lesson
late.
for
Like
each and every team and every individual. on
LSU
those
runs the table in the ACC. I'll be full bias. Like you put just about any team.
They got beat by USC,
everything
who
to
went
do
5-5 in the Big
what
Ten,
happened
or
late
6
in
and
the
6
year
in
to
the Big Ten.
Alabama. I think we all look at
So
Alabama.
do they?
all-
I don't think they go
we-
undefeated in the ACC.
We applaud the effort and what they did.
We all
against
thought
top 25
that
teams.
week
I
Miller
think
Moss
the
was
loss to
legit. It
Vanderbilt,
just didn't
and then,
pan
of
out.
course, the loss at Oklahoma ultimately had to do them in, because if you put the resume,
I think the
side
coach
by
is
side,
overrated.
SMU and Alabama.
I mean, at some point though, there's got to be a reality. Like
it gives them an advantage, but they lost that game.
the
way
ACC
they
can
lost that
go
game.
play Howard
Yes.
University
And I
We-
think
and
we've
win,
said-
and it counts the same
Smitty
as a
had to
tough
look at
win
that,
against
and
Georgia.
We've said this
SMU was,
every
a
week,
team
the
that
last
was
couple
ahead of
weeks. It's like the
Alabama by, what, 3
basketball.
spots last
Every
week.
year there's going to be a team like South Carolina was
Alabama
probably
didn't have to
playing
play
one of the
that
best
game.
football
Yeah.
at the end of the year.
And they
They're
lose
probably
on
more
the
deservingly than
field goal.
SMU.
All right,
You got
Bama.
the quarterback that's a
That was
monster.
at
You know,
Oklahoma.
to get into
the
game.
biggest thing about Bama was you went out and again, cold atmosphere in Oklahoma, and you got boat raced, and you
I don't
showed no
disagree.
light.
Yeah.
That probably did
I
it
don't
for
disagree.
Bama.
I-
And again,
I'm
I
not
still
making a
think
case.
they would have got in if Clemson would have just beat them by 7 or more. I think they somehow would have got them in because of TV. Because this is all about TV ratings.
And
And I don't want to sit there and say like I'm solely vouching for Alabama. I'm just using them because they were the comparison. South Carolina has played some of the best football we've seen over the past 7 weeks.
But then
They could
look at the
absolutely
path
wreak havoc in
based
this.
on
They deserve
who gets the
just
first
as much, in
round
my
bye.
opinion.
And
Ole Miss,
what is your
I think, would
path to
create
get
a way better
championship
matchup than
in
SMU.
every other tournament
Uh,
venue?
Army,
top
if you're going to
4
compare,
teams
like, say,
end up
SMU's
getting
schedule doesn't
the top
matter,
4
then give it to Army,
positions to
who's
get a
won their
bye.
conference title. I
And
mean,
because of what they
we're at
earned
the
throughout
same
the course
same
of the year
schedule. Like,
relative to their
a win's a
schedule,
win
who
at
they
that
beat
point.
and how
Army
they
has
ranked,
less losses than
they would
SMU.
have the
So
best
I think it comes down to Army had one game, and that was that
And
Notre
as
Dame
we
game, and they
pointed
got
out already,
beat bad.
that's not necessarily
Yeah,
true.
probably.
The 5th seed has the best chance to
And I'll
get
say this,
to
in
the
defense of
championship
Army,
from a path standpoint.
Notre
That doesn't
Dame
mean they're
plays
gonna get there.
the
But
military
if you
schools
look at the
every single
ranked
year.
teams and the ranking
They're
of
one of the
teams
few
they're gonna
teams
play,
that it wouldn't give
they
trouble. I mean,
have
Smitty, we watched
the
Army
lowest ranked
give
teams to
Michigan
get
a
to
run
where
for
they
their
wanna
money in
go.
double overtime
And some of the
because
higher
Michigan
seeds,
doesn't
like
generally
Oregon,
schedule
is
that
going
kind
to
of
have to play
offensive
Ohio
team.
State. If
Disciplined
Notre Dame
teams.
does every
which
year.
is,
You saw
you
it
know,
Friday
they-
night.
Just
No
maybe.
turnovers,
Yeah.
no
playoff
turnovers, no
system,
penalties
but
Friday night.
some of the
Yeah, but
better
Navy and
teams
Army, they
in
all run the
college
same
football.
offense, so
So
you're very familiar.
I think we can
Agreed.
learn from that.
Yeah,
as well.
like there's
Agreed.
teams that Army
I
could give
completely agree. We really need
hell
to reassess
all game
seeding, how
long
we
because
do
you're
it,
just
what
not used to it.
guarantees we're making.
Yeah.
If you win a conference, are you guaranteed a bye? I agree. Just seed them 1 through 12, and let's see how things stack up.
Okay, let's see.
But this was a very
About
difficult
to pull up some
conclusion
odds,
to
see if
come
they're
to
up yet.
because there was really
Yeah.
You want to go through the bracket?
What I was waiting on.
Gosh, the better part
Yeah,
of the last
I'm
half
getting the
hour.
graphic.
You had
for the,
consequences on both sides.
Oh, for the odds.
You
Yeah,
put
give me a sec.
Alabama in the field. You are now de-incentivizing participation in a conference championship game because
agree with
SMU,
that.
had they decided not to play the ACC
What?
title, they say we're not going to go.
McElroy said
You're at 8.
if you put
You're
Bama
either
in, you're
drop
basically
them out,
de-incentivizing
you are
the
de-incentivizing
conference championship game.
championship game.
Yep.
Or you're going to de-incentivize
To why even play?
the
Because you can
strength
get
of
3
schedule and
losses.
Teams being willing to go
Yep.
out of conference and play more difficult opponents. So there was no
And
winning.
in fairness, that's one of the few things that the committee did stick to their word on. They said we're not going to punish punish teams who lose their conference championship games. They didn't punish Texas. They didn't punish Penn State. They didn't punish
where
SMU.
we're at with
I would also be curious. I would have liked to have seen one of those be a blowout and see. They were all close games.
That's a good point there.
'Cause I do think if SMU loses by 10 plus yesterday, I don't think they're in.
Yeah, I think I was thinking more of, do they resort teams with like their new rank, or their new like results? Like, so do you look at Texas now? Like, do you look at Texas now as a 10-2 team, and you compare them to other 10-2 teams with zero top 25 wins on the entire year? So the fact that they didn't do that and they just like moved him basically to kind of kept them as high as they could. I think at least they stuck to their word there, because I'm sure they were very scared. I'm sure every conference commissioner, not just Sankey, had to be in their ear going, "You better not take our money away from what we make from these conference championship games. They need to continue to matter, no matter how big of a playoff we have."
No, you're right.
Did y'all see how fast the odds changed last night for playoffs? It was like minus 400, and then it was minus 5,000, like in an instant.
And then back down to like 560, and then back up in the thousands.
I would have bet it at 560, like that. It was a foregone conclusion at that point.
All right, let's run this bracket. Clemson, Texas.
There are no lines up yet.
No, we'll just do money line right now.
Nope, I got lines. Here
Texas, Clemson, 11.5.
10.5.
Okay.
Oh, I said 9.5. I was right there.
DraftKings. Tennessee, Ohio State. Ohio State is -7. Total 46.5.
No way. Tennessee.
Indiana's 8 plus 8.5 against Notre Dame. Total 49.5.
I'm buying Tennessee up to 7.5. And
SMU plus.
Look at that. Tennessee, Ohio State total 47.5. That's spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's like a 24-20 game.
Dude,
what was the Penn State one?
I don't see a Penn State one yet.
What was it?
Penn State -9.5 over SMU. I'll be on SMU.
I'd be on SMU too. Conditions are key in that, I think.
Yeah.
What's the over/under in that?
52.5.
Under. If it's
under.
Yeah.
No. Yep. Could be bad.
Yep.
I grew up right outside there by December 20th.
Happy Valley's going to be nuts, though.
I don't know if SMU could play in the cold for 4 quarters, letting the running backs just beat them up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was like 38 degrees last night in Charlotte. I don't know what the difference is going to be.
Well, it depends.
I don't snow.
I mean, the snow can give a lot of. I mean, the offense has the key in that. But State College, December 20th or 21st, if you get wind and it's just cold, that could be down to like 5 degrees, 10 degrees.
Here's what I kind of like about this Indiana Notre Dame matchup is it's the two teams that I feel like people have said, well, who have they beaten? Like, who's their most impressive win? And they both just take care of business. So I'm curious to see. One's in a conference, one's not.
What was the line?
8.5. I'm probably going to have to be on Indiana there.
I was hoping to catch that under 7.
I think Notre Dame wins, but I think it's a field goal game, maybe 3 or 4 points.
I think that's a Notre Dame, Texas money line parlay.
Square, but I like it.
Whatever. It's plus money.
I think this is one of those you're back to.
I think both of them.
I think this is one of those back up to Ohio State, Indiana type of matchup where it's like NFL athletes versus your upper echelon of the kind of group of 5 guys that transferred into Indiana. I just don't think that's something Indiana's ready for.
Notre Dame should also be healthy. They had a defensive back.
Notre Dame. Yeah, Notre Dame in that one for sure.
Who has better athletes, though, Ohio State or Indiana or Notre Dame?
On the line, Notre Dame. Outside and position wise, Ohio State.
That's where I feel like they struggled though. They couldn't match up against the receivers and the running backs. I don't know.
Well, I'll take Jeremiah Love.
Going to be able to move the ball.
Jeremiah Love's going to be the first running back taken in the draft next year.
Yeah.
But the question is, he got banged up against
Ohio State's.
Yes.
So if they couldn't score on Ohio State, they're going to have a really hard time against Notre Dame's secondary.
Clemson, Texas. We got Texas moving on.
Yeah.
Tennessee, Ohio State.
Here's where we're going to differ. I know where Matt's going. I'm going Tennessee.
I think Tennessee gets it.
I think Tennessee covers. I think Ohio State wins.
I think they cover too. I'm going to Ohio State to win the game.
Ooh, 2-2. Love it.
2-2. SMU, Penn State.
Penn State.
I think SMU covers, but I think Penn State
I
wins.
think Penn State. Yeah, I kind of like the ATS for SMU. It depends on conditions. I'm not saying that yet. Penn State,
Especially if that number gets over 10.
Penn State wins the game though.
That's the one match. That's the one matchup where the format of letting the higher seed host this year that's the one where it makes the biggest difference. That game.
Yeah. Indiana, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
I think Indiana may cover. Notre Dame wins.
Same here.
I think Notre Dame could blow them out.
I agree. All right, Texas, Arizona State.
I think Arizona State could give them a run for their money.
I do too. I think they would be able to run. We saw ETN last night kind of do what he wanted.
I don't know if I'm going to go on a limb here and say Arizona State could win that game outright.
I think Texas wins that.
How funny would that be? And how great for college football?
It's great.
Texas wins. I think they do a little bit more Arch Manning. They switch it up a little bit, hopefully.
That was another thing, too, is I don't know why we didn't see more Arch.
No, and I said it. Everything you heard all week was about in the red zone, and there are going to be packages, and then they never did.
He got one carry.
Bad. I mean, making freshman mistakes, staring down that receiver on the sidelines and forcing it just to throw a pick. Terrible. All right. So I'll say Ohio State, Oregon. I know y'all say Tennessee, Oregon. I think if it's Ohio State, Oregon, I wouldn't put it past Ryan Day to pull one out and get the win. But
I'm going
for
Oregon
all intents and
either way.
purposes, I'll say
I think Oregon advances either way.
Either one.
Yeah. I think Oregon would rather see Tennessee just matchup wise. Because Tennessee's biggest thing, like being as good as they are on the offensive line, defensive line, Oregon kind of takes that out of your hands with their quick passing game. Let them, like Tez Johnson, we saw, like just get the ball in his hands as fast as possible.
Yeah.
I don't think Tennessee has the firepower. And like Tennessee's biggest struggle is their secondary. And I just think matchup wise, that would be an issue. So I think Oregon would rather see Tennessee instead of Ohio State. But like I said, I think it's Tennessee, and then I think Oregon beats them.
All right, Penn State, Boise State.
Where would this be?
This would be Arizona State will get the Fiesta Bowl.
Home game.
Cotton Bowl, I guess.
Penn State travels pretty well.
Higher spread, like if Penn State's favorite, I might take, but I don't know. I mean, Penn State would be favored in this.
Man,
I don't know. I mean, maybe Penn State. I don't know. I mean, I think Penn State's a better team, though.
I think Penn State could win because they have a guy named Todd Warren, and I think that's the difference. Like, I think they could allow Genty to score, but they could somehow get more.
Was Warren number 44?
Yeah.
I swear every single time I looked up my TV, he was catching a pass.
Yeah.
Him and Singleton. Is Singleton 10? They're really their entire offense. Penn State should win, but Franklin's still the coach. Yeah, but Boise State's not a top 5 team.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm probably going to say Penn State, but I think Boise State would cover.
Yeah, I think Boise could cover that game.
I think they'll be able to run the ball. Jordan
James
would be Boise having his way.
Boise State would be plus 13. So I have these real quick. I can go over these. So the Arizona State would get the Peach Bowl. Clemson would be plus 1.5. And then Texas would be minus 13.
Oh, Arizona State.
Massive difference there. Fiesta Bowl. So Boise would be Fiesta Bowl. SMU would be by 7.5. Penn State would be by 13.
Boise covers. Penn State wins.
Yeah, give me Boise State.
I don't think we're valuing Arizona State. Boise State is enough.
I just said Arizona money line. Arizona State. Yeah. Cover plus win.
Yeah. So Georgia gets the Sugar Bowl. That would be Indiana. Georgia would be a 7-point favorite. Notre Dame, they'd be a 1-point favorite.
Wow.
So basically pick them with Notre Dame, 7 with Indiana.
Are they putting in that maybe that's to the backup quarterback?
I would assume so. I mean, just projections, you can only do it so far.
Okay.
And then Rose Bowl would be Oregon. They'd be favored by 4 over Tennessee and favored by 1 over Ohio State.
I mean,
that's about where I'd have it.
Yeah. Now, they still think Oregon advances regardless.
So by that measure, Oregon has the toughest
yeah.
path. as far
Oregon
as
and
the odds would be, regardless of what opponent.
And then and then Georgia's basically under a touchdown either way too.
Yeah. Well, if it's Notre Dame, Georgia, who are y'all going with?
Backup quarterback. I'm going Notre Dame.
Accused himself from answering. He would say Notre Dame.
Backup quarterback for Georgia. I'm going Notre Dame.
Well, here's the thing. At this point, if Texas,
I would rather
would
I not rather have Beck? I don't care if you're Notre Dame which quarterback you're throwing out there.
I'm still higher on Beck than a lot of people.
Yeah, I get it. I don't think Notre Dame cares. It's like there's just been nothing that has proven anything so far this year outside of one or two big games. If I'm Notre Dame, please give me. But you're right. Please give me a backup quarterback who's made 0 starts in college in a quarterfinal game.
Todd, are you Hannah Cavender or Todd Smith? I don't know.
What's that?
I said, are you Hannah Cavender or Todd Smith? I don't know. Standing over here for Carson Beck. That's his girlfriend.
No, I did say that on a text yesterday. Just get the blonde by him, and maybe he'll wake up a little bit. But I don't know. There's times that he still, to me, looks good as a quarterback, and there's other times it's a head scratcher too. So this whole quarterback class is going to be tough going into the NFL. Because the same thing Nick says, he makes some really good throws at times, and other times he doesn't.
Those games will be televised.
There you go.
Yeah, real quick. So Penn State's at noon. Notre Dame gets a night game in South Bend. Yes.
Saturday afternoon.
Ohio State night game in Columbus.
Nick, can you get me my favorite Notre Dame player of all time, Alan Pinkett, from like the 80s? Can you give me a jersey for the playoffs here? You know who Alan Pinkett is? I know I'm a lot older than you.
Yeah, I think they were called sweaters back then, I believe. Okay. I believe they were sweaters.
Little Jerry Faust, Alan R.I.P. A little Alan Pinkett. Let's go.
A night game in South Bend.
Yes, I'll get you a Rudy was offside shirt.
Rudy wasn't real.
Yeah, Rudy, you missed that. You weren't here. We said get you a Rudy wasn't real shirt.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. They commented they were talking crap about Notre Dame and said somebody said Rudy isn't even real.
He is a real person.
T-shirt, give it to you.
He is a real person, but that story, yes, is very overly exaggerated in the movie. Yeah.
Rudy and Rocky Balboa, 2 United States legends. All right. I would say, because I didn't answer yet, if Beck's playing, I think Georgia could squeak it out and close. If it's the backup, I think Notre Dame advances.
When the other games
I know it doesn't help, but I think it changes the game drastically.
Indiana and Notre Dame will be in prime time on
Friday whenever that commissioner comes on, I am curious to hear what he had to say about what they ended up valuing.
Tennessee and Ohio State, 8 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday night. And the other games will be.
So then we would be left with what? Texas, Oregon,
still will be ESPN production
and
Penn State.
Penn State.
Max. We continue. Now, playoff selection special. Ward Manuel, the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, will join us to break down the committee's thinking on the seeding.
I was just standing there staring.
Yeah.
So, going back to this real quick during the commercial break. Who's national championship? I think
Oregon and
honestly, I think it's Oregon, Notre Dame.
I like Oregon, Notre Dame.
Please, I hope it's Texas, Notre Dame, but I think it'll be Oregon.
Yeah, it's Oregon, and I'll say Notre Dame can absolutely get there. I think Georgia could get there depending on who plays quarterback. It's going to be the winner of the Notre Dame Georgia's playing Oregon. I think it's the easiest way to say it.
Here's the thing. If it works like March Madness, if I pick Notre Dame to win it all, they're going to lose to Indiana. I swear, I feel like every year it's like, oh, yeah, I'm so confident in filling out my bracket. And then it's like I'll pick a 2 or 3 seed to go all the way, and then they lose in the first or second round.
Mm-hmm.
With Ken's point, do we think specifically Happy Valley, like, does it matter if it's a night or a day game? That place rocks. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is.
I think this one being a day game could actually benefit them, just because it'll be I could see because it's also a time change for SMU too. So it's 11 a.m. It's an 11 a.m. And was that on Friday or Saturday?
Announced moments ago, and we are pleased to be joined
Also,
by
that's a Friday. That's even worse.
Friday, the
Ward
20th.
Manuel, also the athletic director at Michigan.
All right, here we go.
We'll go through this. There are a lot of things to get to. Let's start first with inclusion. Alabama and SMU.
This is going to be brutal.
There was a significant difference in strength of schedule between the two. There was a significant difference, we assume, when we see the rest of the rankings, in number of ranked wins. How did the committee come to the balance between making sure SMU wasn't penalized or the committee wasn't punitive toward them for playing a conference championship game, as opposed to putting the appropriate value on strength of schedule?
Well, Reese, good to be with you again. And your debate on television really sums up the debate in the room. We looked at the number of wins that Alabama had against ranked opponents. We looked at SMU's schedule, and they were undefeated in conference. Their losses were to ranked teams. But we also looked at Alabama's loss to unranked teams. And it was quite a debate.
Thank you.
We value strength of schedule. That's why Alabama, as the 3-loss team, is ranked ahead of other teams that have 2 losses. It is something that we talk about quite a bit. But in the balance of it, in the way SMU played in that game, losing on the last second field goal, great win by Clemson, great game.
That just told you
we just felt that
way they came back determined them getting in.
SMU still had the nod at 10 above Alabama, but it's no disrespect to Alabama's strength of schedule. It's merely looking at the entire body of work for both teams.
It's human nature, Ward, to focus on that last spot. We do it every year, whether it's 4 teams or 12 teams. We just put a graphic up on the screen that also included Indiana. I know the way the committee goes about ordering and ranking these teams once you get to the various steps. You often wind up with 3 teams. Did Indiana ever come under the same type of scrutiny that SMU and Alabama did relative to each other, relative to those 3 teams?
Absolutely. We did that the week prior. We did it this week. We talked about where teams are and looked at their schedule again, looked at who they played, who they beat, how they played in those games in terms of their schedule and their strength of schedule. All of those things were discussed quite heavily, actually, in the grouping of those teams as you look at them and how they came out to be ranked.
How would you characterize tonight? You guys often get a chance to watch games together. As Clemson built a big lead, did you sense anything shifting in terms of the perception of SMU early in that game, as opposed to when the Ponies made the big rally and came very close to being able to pull it out?
Well, I think, we all recognize that Clemson really started off strong in that game, and SMU was having difficulty in the first half of the game. But as we watched the whole game, we were impressed with the fact that SMU came back the way that they did.
I mean, SMU beat themselves in the first half.
Very well.
I think it was more SMU than it was Clemson.
But Kevin Jennings kept throwing. He threw that one pick. It was just awful.
Oh,
what he was doing.
Wonder he was kind of like spinning and avoiding those 2 guys and just off his back foot.
Saw the difference between the first half of that game and the second half.
Yeah, let's look at a couple of other things with the bracket, Warden. It's something that we've pointed out for quite some time. We talked about how advantageous it might be to be the 5 seed, but as it turns out, the way things have fallen, it might be the 6 seed instead that is deemed more advantageous. Oregon's the only undefeated team in the country. You guys have deemed them the best team in this playoff. They are the
Big Ten Tennessee or Ohio State.
Beat Penn State.
Here,
and then when you look at their quarterfinal game against either Ohio State or Tennessee, it might be that the Ducks have a more disadvantageous road than the 6th seed Penn State does in taking on an SMU team that barely made it in, and Boise State, who is not quite as highly ranked. How do you evaluate that, and what's your suggestion for moving forward with the committee and taking care of the teams that are deemed to be the best, like Oregon?
Yeah, Reese. I mean, we ranked the teams 1 through 25. That's what we've been asked to do. We don't discuss, well, if we put this team at 1 and we moved this team's 8 or 9, and they're going to be playing each other, and we need to go back and reconsider.
I hope they ask
them
them where Michigan
in the
was.
top 25. We've been asked.
They're at 26.
To rank.
Yeah, I'm confused. Where's our
teams 1 through 25?
Here's what I don't like. I'll say this.
What the commissioner set up.
They said that they're not going to, or they hinted that they're not going to allow a loss to hinder.
As we see
the
teams
conference
in the
game
tournament,
to hinder
it
stance.
turns out.
Well, he just completely went against that by saying we recognize they came back.
In terms of 8-9.
Because
playing 1, but
it wouldn't have mattered if they lost by 40 or 4 with that thought process of we're not going to punish them, win or loss.
That is a good point. Really, unless he just meant whether they were the 11 or 12 seed, but he didn't say that. You're right.
He didn't specify. Like, so if that's what you're going to say, that the comeback last night was the only reason they made it.
Nor should it be
unless he
send messages.
Corrects to what
there would be one received. If you chose Alabama, it was going to be conference championship games don't matter as much as we have said that they do. And if you chose SMU, then it was going
NFL
to disincentivize
has begun. We
adding
appreciate
risk to your schedule,
Stellars.
the part you can control in the
Go Steelers.
As an athletic director, which you are in your day job for the most part.
Okay, so what do you guys think?
How do you
talking about does the conference game matter here? I think it was the last question.
Oh, yes.
Well, I think, Reese, one of the things we have to understand is that on the conference side, you can't control who you play. You can't control how those teams will be playing and how highly ranked they will be or not. But what we also value is competition and playing competition in the non-conference, and if you schedule that way, or in the conference. And so we look at who these teams play. And from my perspective, I think what we did is, and what we said is, those teams, we're going to look at these last games and use it as a data point to determine how we will rank teams. And those teams, if you look at those games that were played very closely, those teams weren't penalized in the terminology that people use.
But it also wasn't used as a data point either.
Team or not, but in the sense of penalizing the team, we looked at the game they played. SMU played a game against Clemson and lost by 3. And so for us, it just came down to watching the games. We watched those games together.
Contradicting what he's trying to say every sentence.
They earned the right to be in those conference championships, and we value watching those games and seeing the results and the outcome. And so for us, as an AD, I would just say to athletic directors, you have to schedule the games that you need to schedule in the non-conference that you feel is best for your team, for your fan base. I look forward. We played Texas this year. I don't lament the fact that we played Texas at home. I'm not going to lament that we have Oklahoma away next year as an athletic director. I look forward to those games. And if we do well, it will give us a boost. And if we don't, then we have to.
I will say this: Penn State has a good draw. But in James Franklin, this is the time to show it, buddy.
Win the games you're
good luck.
Good luck. Win.
Ken says it's a failed system at the end of the day.
Those other games.
That's like what he was just saying.
But it's not, I want to just make sure.
Okay, I was just going to bring up, I guess he's basically done. If you throw the bracket back up there, I just wonder, because it'd be very easy to do. Why not reseed the teams after round 1, and just say so that this doesn't happen. So say whatever your highest ranked left, say SMU beats Penn State. So so there's an 11 left. Then 11 is who plays Oregon, and then so on. And kind of so forth. It wouldn't be hard.
You're defeating the purpose of being the number 1 overall seed.
Right now, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, right now. Yeah. What's the point?
100%.
And it's not like the old days where it's oh, no, this travel is so hard. All these schools, look at these schools that are up here. The smallest one is SMU, and that's one of the richest, that's one of the richest private schools in the country, and is in downtown Dallas. These schools are flying private anyways. It's not hard to tell a team that, oh, no, instead of flying to Arizona, you have to fly to New Orleans. That makes no difference in a week's time. So I think this would be easily solved, which will probably be next year. I think there's going to be some complaints because of how this turned out, those, especially kind of SEC Big Ten, where it's going to be why did it shake out like this? I think next year it probably ends up reseeding or some sort of thing to actually give the advantage to who's 1 and who's 2.
So I've got the a couple of nuggets here. Easiest overall Power 4 schedule was SMU. The easiest Power 4 non-conference schedule was Ohio State. And let me think.
I'm trying to think who Ohio State even played out of conference.
Yeah, terrible teams.
Like, it's not even ringing a bell. That pretty much tells you all you need to know.
This was on ESPN. I don't know what you call this. I mean, he's sitting here saying that you're going to value scheduling a tough opponent. And if you win, it obviously matters. And if you lose,
well, then it'll be considered.
It obviously doesn't matter.
It's also
schedule cupcakes.
It's also very dependent on like other teams too. Like, so, and I brought this up either last week or 2 weeks ago when we did this. You look at Notre Dame's preseason schedule, and they were like preseason, like they had the 4th hardest schedule in the country preseason because they had Texas A&M, who was 12th. They had Florida State, who was 7th. They had USC, who I believe was 13th or 14th.
Yeah.
They had Louisville, who was like 20 or 21. So there's 5 right there. And that didn't even count what Army turned into. So it's like you can schedule certain things, but you can't determine like what that team turns into. Like, yes, it would have looked great in the past if Alabama would have played on the road at Wisconsin. This year, Wisconsin is a 500 team.
Yeah.
So
and that's what he said, and I appreciated that you can't control what the teams end up having. Like, we didn't know that Alabama's SEC schedule might not be as hard as Georgia's was. Like, you just don't know what the teams end up being. I mean, I didn't think South Carolina was going to be a 9-3 team.
To that point, Matt, it's inherently obvious, and I use the term mediocre. Mediocre in the SEC is on a much higher level than mediocre in the Big 12 or ACC. Those mediocre losses are way different than a mediocre loss in those conferences. Those mediocre teams in the SEC. What do you think Arkansas does in the ACC?
I mean, look, we lost to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was a big
worst team
beater.
The worst team in the Big 12.
You can't even say that because Notre Dame lost to NIU as 22-point favorites.
But I'm saying
27 and a half,
week out, if you're matched up against those schedules,
get it right.
I understand, like, you have to play your schedule, but at the end of the day, an SEC schedule is inherently harder.
I don't think you can say that every team, top to bottom, is mediocre.
What do you mean? I mean, okay, who's elite in the ACC?
Well, I mean, I would say Miami, SMU, and Clemson would be your top 3.
Okay,
I'm looking at SMU's schedule. Okay,
so then there's a massive drop off.
Let's compare it. At Nevada, Arkansas probably wins. Houston Christian win. BYU loss. TCU toss up. Florida State maybe. At Louisville loss.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Maybe a win.
4 games.
Duke.
I'd take Louisville over Arkansas.
I would too. At Duke, at Stanford.
Oh,
they're losing one of those 2.
They beat Stanford.
Pitt.
They can beat Pitt. Pitt's 7-5.
Boston College. Missouri.
I mean, that's a lot of
Boston College.
I mean,
they're around 500 in that conference. They're around 500 with that schedule as well.
At Virginia.
See, I fully disagree.
Cal
beat Auburn.
I think they're still 6-6. I think Arkansas is still 6-6, 7-5.
I think the SEC is a little overrated personally, but
I do too. I think there is a lot more parity than people think. And if you disagree, take your team, take a comparable team from another conference, look at their schedule, go on our website, use the matchup predictor, see which ones they would be projected to win in.
Can I just say, looking at the bracket, I want to see what Clemson can do against Texas. Because I think I like Dabo. I think Dabo's a good coach, and I give him a lot of respect for not doing the NIL stuff, and he stands now. Is he a smart guy doing that? No, probably not. I want to see if they can compete in that game. I don't think they can. I think they'll lose, but I think that's an interesting team to see how they go. And it's all about the quarterback again, because he can be on fire in some games, and other games he doesn't look that great.
All right. Well,
Interesting.
This is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. We'll have like 3 weeks off before college football playoff, but we will come to you with bowl previews, yada, yada. We'll be back. Not exactly sure when, but if you guys don't have anything else, we'll close it out. Go watch some NFL. Smitty.
Good college basketball games on today, too.
Smitty, best bet of the day. Go.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Arizona Cardinals to beat money line against Seattle.
Nick?
Texas -1.5 at home against UConn. College basketball.
Q?
Steelers, Dolphins, moneyline parlay.
All the games have already started.
Steelers ready to punch one in here. Let's go.
I'm going to continue to fade Kansas City Chiefs of covering spreads, especially divisional road dogs. They've been hitting at a really profitable clip here. You've got a couple of this afternoon, Seattle +2.5 and Chargers +4. I like both of those. So with that, enjoy your Sunday, and we will be back at some point for a bowl preview show. Thank you all for tuning in. All 1,430 of you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Go like and follow, and we will see you next time. Cheers, y'all.